Welcome back to the first team. I am Joe DeLeone, and joining me as always is my good friend, NFL draft analyst Ryan Roberts. Today we're going to be doing, well, I don't know why I paused like that. We're going to be doing another dueling mock draft episode. And if you missed the first one that we did, basically, Ryan and I dropped mock drafts around the same time. Ryan's is on USA Today's college site. Mine is on the Believe Sports Illustrated site. And we're going to be reading through them each and nitpicking or just providing some context and insight on what we think of the other person's mock draft. I'm going to kick us off here, Ryan. I'm going to read yours first. So you went with the prototypical. Number 1, Caleb Williams. Number 2, Caleb Williams to the Chicago Bears. 2, Jayden Daniels, quarterback LSU to the Washington Commanders. 3, Drake May, quarterback North Carolina to the New England Patriots. And then number 4, Marvin Harrison Jr., wide receiver to Ohio State. All pretty standard, very common in these mock drafts. Brock Bowers,
no pushback on Jayden Daniels.
No
pushback on Jayden
Daniels. No, because I had
Jayden
Daniels number 2 also. So like I don't even think that that's like really even a talking point, because I think everyone's gonna. I'm willing to bet now, and maybe we're some of the first people in on this, but I saw a lot of the early mock drafts that were immediate post Super Bowl. Almost all of them had Jayden Daniels 2, Caleb 1, Drake May 3. So many did.
Yeah.
Don't you think that that's going to be the trend?
I talked about this like a couple weeks ago, man. I didn't I text you a couple weeks ago where I was like, man, I think I might have Jayden over Drake. Like, I think I might, kind of just finishing up some film watching. Because, well, the reason that you're talking about that, though, is that the trend, who was it that just put it in like was it Lance Zierlein that said that Drake May might fall
the Drake May out of it. Yeah, we're not entertaining that.
Okay. Well, I think that's why you're talking about that trend happening though with several people, is that like groupthink happens, right? But yeah. I mean, it's possible, man. I think it's possible that it happens. I mean, I just don't think it's out of the realm of possibility, because we see it every single year. I mean, we're also talking about the conversation is JJ McCarthy potentially going in the top 12, I think is what Dane Brugler said. Like, he's probably not going to get out of the top 12. So, I mean, quarterbacks are a strange bunch to evaluate sometimes.
I'm going to vomit if JJ McCarthy ends up going in the top 12. Number 4, you had Marvin Harrison Jr., the wide receiver from Ohio State, going to the Arizona Cardinals. Brock Bowers, tight end from Georgia, Los Angeles Chargers. Quick add in here. I had the same pick, and I feel that now that Jim Harbaugh is the coach and he's leading the direction of this, I mean, come on. This feels like a slam dunk of a pick, right? Like the amount of tight ends that came out of Michigan and how important they were this year. Like, this feels like a great pick for them.
I mean, yeah, I love the fit personally. I think it would make a lot of sense. My only hesitation was, the other spot that I was thinking about was offensive tackle. Could that be OT1 off the board? Because Rashawn Slater was injured 2 years ago. He's back now, but the right tackle position is not a good situation either. Could they just shore up the offensive tackle position? That'd be my other impulse. But I think Brock Bowers would make a lot of sense, especially because your middle of the field threats right now for the Chargers is really just Keenan Allen as a slot receiver, and he's starting to get a little bit old and starting to wear down a little bit. So, do you go with the Brock Bowers to be your middle of the field separator? I feel like it would make a lot of sense.
I've seen receivers projected here, and I kind of hate the thought of a receiver being the Chargers pick because they've spent a decent amount of early draft capital on these guys. And I think that Mike Williams is supposed to not be coming back, is what the expectation is. But I don't know why you'd go receiver early again. It'd be better to tack the offensive deficiencies a little bit differently. So that's why I like the thought of a tight end there. Malik Neighbors, number 6, the LSU wide receiver, goes to the New York Giants. I love that. Joe Alt, Notre Dame offensive tackle, is a Tennessee Titan at number 7. Number 8, Jared Verse, edge rusher from Florida State, goes to the Atlanta Falcons. Number 9, Keon Coleman, wide receiver from Florida State, to the Chicago Bears. Number 10, Olu Fashanu, Penn State, is a New York Jet. I want to say I think I had the same pick. I don't understand, by the way, that if you project Olu Fashanu as the 3rd or the 4th tackle, it's considered that he's... This is what really confuses me. When you hear him at 3 or 4, everybody's like, why are you so low on him? I have him
Yep.
projected as a top 15 pick. Is that low? I mean, is that the world that we live in? The guy
I
is very gifted. Like what?
I I've seen your back and forth on Twitter, Joe. I think that some people are
Yeah.
convinced that Olu is the slam dunk OT2 in this class at worst, which I look, man, there's subjectiveness. I think where it comes down to is don't necessarily think that you're low on Olu Fashanu, which I think is why people take that. I think you are just exceptionally high on Talise Fuaga and for some reason JC Latham. For some reason.
Yeah, there you're getting it now. BetOnline remains your top spot for all of your live betting action and contests. NFL, college football, UFC, NHL are all in full swing. BetOnline is your number one source for wagering news, odds, trends, and predictions with both desktop and mobile access at any time. Head to BetOnline today and use promo code BELIEVE. That's BLEAV for 50% off your first deposit. That is a 50% welcome bonus. Bet online where the game starts.
Yeah.
That's all I've been saying to people. I'm just higher than everybody else on JC Latham and Talise Fuaga. Number 11, Nate Wiggins, cornerback from Clemson, is a Minnesota Viking. I love that pick. Bo Nix, quarterback. Oregon is a Denver Bronco. Talise Fuaga falls out of the top 10, is number 13 to the Las Vegas Raiders, Oregon State offensive tackle. Amarius Mims, tackle from Georgia, number 14 to the New
Yep.
Orleans Saints. Number
I love that spot,
15.
by the way. I don't know if I'm allowed to interrupt you while you're going through the picks, but I love
No, you are.
Amarius Mims to the New Orleans Saints. I think that is a because they had to play Andrews Pete at left tackle this year because Trevor Penning isn't good. Who would have thought that would be coming, right? But ultimately, right tackle right now is even in a worse situation. You had to play Landon Young at right tackle, who is
Yeah.
just because Ryan Ramczyk might have a career-ending injury, right? So he might be working through that. So they have a spot at right tackle, which I think would make total sense. And also, if for some reason Ryan Ramczyk can come back, then maybe Amarius Mims could compete to be the starting left tackle. So I really like Amarius Mims in New Orleans. I think that would make a lot of sense.
I do like that too. Them, or I think that they could take an edge rusher because their pass rush was one of the worst in terms of team sacks last year. I think they were like bottom 4 or 5.
You want to
They
hear
got good
something
D
terrible?
tackles, but what?
You want to hear something terrible? Top 40 pick last year, Isaiah Foskey was drafted by New Orleans Saints. Guess how many sacks Isaiah Foskey had as a rookie, Joe?
5.5.
0. 0.
Oh
0
shit. Okay.
sacks, 0 tackles for loss in 10 games, only 9 total tackles. So, not great, man. Not
They
great.
need a premier guy, which is why I think I had them taking Dallas Turner. Rome Odunze, number 15 to the Indianapolis Colts, the Washington receiver. I like the fit there because they need one more final receiver, plus Michael Pittman might be out the door. Dallas Turner, edge rusher for the Seattle Seahawks, coming out of Alabama. Like that. I think I had him reverse just because McDonald, I mean, they got to be going and getting an edge rusher with a defensive minded head coach like that. Number 17, Brian Thomas Jr., wide receiver from LSU. I like pick number 20. Number 17, Brian. I already just said that one. Number 18, Jerjon Newton, defensive lineman from Illinois, goes to the Cincinnati Bengals. Then offensive line or defensive tackle for them makes a lot of sense. 19, Cooper DeJean, cornerback from Iowa, ends up going to the Los Angeles Rams. And then this is where I want to stop really quickly. JC Latham,
Yes.
offensive tackle from Alabama, goes to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, might I recall you have
Oh, it was. But you
might
recalled
I
what? Go ahead.
recall that you have
Yeah.
described Mr. Latham as a third round pick? I'm surprised that you're
Whoa,
willing.
whoa,
By the way,
whoa,
I
whoa,
think
whoa,
I
whoa.
had Latham in the same
Whoa,
exact
whoa,
pick
whoa.
range as you did, and I got
Whoa, whoa,
shit
whoa.
on. But what? Go ahead.
Whoa,
Go
whoa.
ahead.
Whoa, 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 whoa. I had JC Latham with a mid to late second round grade and not have him as a third round grade. Can you correct yourself a little bit there? Can you just correct yourself as far as grades? I'm not putting slander out in the universe like that, man.
No.
Not putting it out there. Not putting it out there. Hey, Joe, listen to me, dude. Listen to me. Pittsburgh
I
Steelers
am.
offensive line stinks. It
Yeah.
stinks. Okay. I need to give him an offensive lineman. Unfortunately, there was a big run on offensive line, man. Literally, the top 4 offensive tackles were already off the board. I am more willing to take JC Latham right now over Tyler Guyton because I think that you could have potential offensive tackle or offensive guard flex while Tyler Guyton is just an offensive tackle, right? So, yeah, I gave the Steelers an offensive lineman because their offensive linemen stink. Okay. It's bad. Bad offensive
Okay.
line.
Fair point. This is one I want to stop on and
Yep.
take a quick note on. Lietu Latu, edge
Yep.
rusher from UCLA to the Miami Dolphins. I got to admit, I actually don't like this one a ton. This is
Why?
probably the only pick that I'm more. I just don't think I their issues with their pass rush last year was because of constant injuries. I think that the fact that they went and got Bradley
Right.
Chubb, and I don't know what his contract's like, the
Well, no,
fact that
Bradley
they've
Chubb
got
got hurt
Jalen
at the end of
Phillips.
the season, though. Yeah, he got hurt at the end of the season, though, Bradley Chubb. So
That's what I'm saying, though, is that like they've got these guys, they were just hurt, and I think that their derail was merely just from like an injury standpoint. I feel like edge, I'm not worried about. I'm more worried about the interior of their offensive line, or maybe getting an additional receiver, maybe a corner. I just don't. I don't really get edge here. That's all I got.
So who's starting at defense, or who's starting on the edge for the Miami Dolphins in week 1 of next season?
You froze. What did you say?
I said, who is starting at edge for the Miami Dolphins in week 1 of the 2024 season?
Well, I don't know the recovery timetable.
Well, I'm pretty sure Bradley Chubb tore his Achilles at the end of the season. So I'd be willing to bet that it will not be Bradley Chubb. And
Well,
Jalen
here's
Phillips also
my
is coming back from injury. Yeah.
here's my other added. I don't
And
agree.
also, Andrew Van Ginkel is a free agent as well. So their edge is a
Okay.
little suspect, sir. Suspect.
To be clear, I'm not like poo-pooing or anything. I'm just breaking down the thought here. I also, my counter, they drafted another guy who medically retired from football in Jalen Phillips. I feel like they wouldn't want to make that same risk with Latu. That's my only other counterpoint.
I mean, we got to wait to hear what the medicals are at the combine, man. We got to wait to hear. Got to wait to hear about it, right? So, hey, man,
Okay.
I think that edge spot is in a tough spot for the Miami Dolphins in the immediate future. I mean, you're talking about a guy coming back from an Achilles later in the season, and you're talking about Jalen Phillips coming back also from an injury earlier in the season.
Mm,
So I'm trying to figure out who's going to rush the quarterback for the Miami Dolphins in 2024, Joe, and I don't have an answer. Just don't have an answer right now,
okay.
man. Except for Leatu Latu.
22, Terrion Arnold, Alabama wide receiver, goes to the Eagles. They need secondary help,
Corner.
so anyone
He
fits
plays
there.
corner. He plays corner.
Corner. What did I say?
Wide
Quarterback?
receiver. You said wide receiver, actually.
Shit. I did that on my mock draft too. Braylon Trice, edge rusher from Washington, goes to the Houston Texans. I like the idea of just adding another defensive lineman to that team. Troy Fautanu, number 24, interior offensive line from Washington, is a Dallas Cowboy. They could use a little bit of bolstering. I like the thought of Tyler Guyton, the offensive tackle from Oklahoma, going 25th overall to the Green Bay Packers
Yeah.
because either tackle spot could use some help. Jackson Powers Johnson, interior offensive lineman from Oregon, is the 26th pick to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. 27 is Quinyon Mitchell, cornerback from Toledo, Arizona Cardinals. I know where I'm going to stop on this next one. I didn't know. Okay, sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself.
Okay.
28, Adonai Mitchell, wide receiver from Texas, goes to the Buffalo Bills. They need a taller receiver, also more of a vertical guy. I really like the thought of that. Here's my stopping point. Darius Robinson, edge, goes 29th overall to the Detroit Lions, the Missouri edge rusher. That one
Yep.
I'm not pushing back on, but a little
Sure.
surprised because I don't know if I would go that far to put him in the first round.
I don't think he's not a true first round player, but as is the case every single year, you only have a smaller number of first round players. There's going to be second day 2 football players that are going to be drafted in the first round. And I looked at the Detroit Lions and I feel like one of the big hindrances to them later in the season was Aiden Hutchinson was fantastic, but he didn't have another counterpart, Joe. At one point in the playoffs, in the course of the season, I think he had like 117 quarterback pressures, and number 2 on the roster had 40. 117 down to 40. I think he needs a partner in crime. And I think that Darius
Yeah.
Robinson could be a partner in crime. And if nothing else, Darius Robinson could also bolster the interior defensive line along with Ali McNeil and kind of reduce down in certain situations as well. So I would agree. Darius Robinson is not a true first round player, in my opinion. But we're talking about the number 29 overall pick. There's going to be some day 2 football players that are going to go in the first round just based upon the actual numbers, obviously.
So you stole my juice with Jalen Polk, the wide
Jaylen.
receiver
I
from
don't think it's
Jaylen.
Jalen.
Jaylen. There's
Yeah.
an apostrophe. There's an apostrophe. Sorry, Jalen Polk. I'm
Yes.
sorry, Jalen Polk.
Yes.
Wide receiver from Washington goes 30th overall. I like that. I didn't even know that because I stopped reading yours when you sent it to me because I didn't want to spoil this show. We both
Okay.
subconsciously ended up having him going in the end of the first round. The Kansas City Chiefs take Ladd McConkey, the wide receiver from Georgia. And then lastly, Kool-Aid McKinstry falls pretty far to the San Francisco 49ers at 32. Alabama defensive back. That is tremendous value there. I don't have any other final points. You ready to pick apart mine?
Yeah, man. Let me pull it up real quick. Again, you can follow Joe's mock draft, Joe DeLeone's 2024 NFL mock draft 3.0 on Sports Illustrated on the Believe page there. So, Joe, all right, man. Let's rock and roll through this. We have some that are very
Okay.
similar, so we're not going to spend a ton of time on. But number one overall in Joe DeLeone's 3.0 mock draft, he had the Chicago Bears selecting Caleb Williams, quarterback from USC. Number two, he stole my pick. He had Washington Commanders select Jayden Daniels, quarterback
Relax.
from LSU. Number three, Drake May, quarterback from North Carolina. Literally the same exact top three picks. Oh, just kidding. Same exact top four because Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to the Arizona Cardinals, wide receiver from Ohio State. Number five, you had we had the first five same picks. That's wild.
Yeah.
Brock Bowers, tight end from Los Angeles Charger. And I would like to say, I'm obviously joking with Joe, but also I did put my mock draft out first. So that is
I
that is
read
a
the
thing.
first four picks and I stopped because I didn't want to ruin the episode. Also, yours came out before mine, but I did my mock draft. Mine didn't publish till Monday, but I did mine on the I wrote mine the same day that you wrote yours. So don't act like yours is like
Sure, man.
I copied yours. Okay. All right,
Whatever makes you feel better.
Who's
Whatever
number
makes you,
6?
you know what's cool is I'm on the page, the Believe page on Fan Nation on Sports Illustrated, and top of the screen, Joe, is our video from the first team. Is the video at the top of the screen, which is
Look at
pretty neat.
that. All the hard
It's
work I
pretty
put
cool.
in.
I love that, man.
I'm the reason why that clip is there because I cut it and I sent it over. All
I
right, number
love it,
6.
man. New York Giants taking Joe Alt, offensive tackle from Notre Dame. Joe, I would like to stop here for a second because I really like the idea of Joe Alt to the New York Giants. I would just like to ask you a question. What are you doing with Evan Neal in this scenario? The
Playing
former first round
guard.
pick from Alabama. You're throwing him in a guard? Okay.
Yeah, this is a weird one for me because I've always gone receiver here, and I just thought to myself, you know what? Joe Alt's still on the board. He's a potential All Pro, and your offensive line hasn't been consistent. You can't pass up on this opportunity. You can get a receiver in the second round, move Evan Neal to
Yep.
guard, and I don't
I
love
don't
Joe
hate
Alt
it.
playing right tackle, but I mean, at the very least, if you can't the next contract with Andrew Thomas, you can't agree to something, you trade him and you move Alt to left tackle. I think there's there's a lot of potential there. But yeah, Evan Neal, I think could be a good guard. I mean, he's got a big frame. He moves well. He just the nuance of playing tackle is just not caught up with him.
He's never just gotten more like his balance is just such an issue for whatever reason, man. Which
Yeah.
is kind of weird because like, he's a good athlete, right? It's just
Right.
it's a very odd one. Number 7 overall, Tennessee Titans. You had him taking Talise Fuaga, the offensive tackle from Morgan State. Hey, Tennessee Titans need offensive linemen. You know I'm a big fan of Talise Fuaga. I am good with that one. I think some people will push back because you had him over Olu Fashanu, but again, that's conversation, right? It's conversation points. Atlanta Falcons, number 8, taking Bo Nix, quarterback for Oregon. I had him at number 12 in my mock. You had him
Yeah.
at number 8. Not a ton of pushback there. I do think the Atlanta Falcons need to figure out a quarterback spot, but
Right.
yeah. Who was it that put it out in the universe that I think it was Dane Brugler that said the NFL is not super high early on of next year's quarterback class, so quarterbacks are going to get pushed up the board of the demand. So I think it makes sense.
Which is confusing because there's some good names there. But no, to your point, I went that direction because they have punted on figuring it out. And I think that new head coach, the idea is just going to be like, we need to get somebody in the room and we need to get this thing rolling.
Yep. Number 9, you had the Chicago Bears taking Malik Neighbors, LSU wide receiver. I don't dislike it. The only pushback I would have is that him and DJ Moore are similar-ish.
Yes.
Right? Like they do
Yeah.
have some similar attributes to them. So it's
That
just a
popped in
mesh of
my
them two.
that popped in my head, but at the same
Yep.
time, I was like, this guy is so talented that maybe they're similar, but it's just like Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle are relatively similar types of players. And imagine what an offense could be like when you've got two just ridiculously speedy, good route running receivers. So I like the
Yeah.
idea that both of them play together.
I love the talent at number 9. I think it makes a ton of sense. I had him at number 6. So obviously I'm very high on Mr. Neighbors. Number 10, New York Jets, J.C. Latham, offensive tackle, Alabama. Imagine taking an
Yeah.
OT5 at pick 10. It's crazy. It's Darnell Wright all over
Yeah.
again, man. All over
Let's
again, Darnell Wright. Number
go.
11, Minnesota Vikings, Nate Wiggins, cornerback from Clemson. We had the same exact pick. So obviously I'm a big fan of that one. Number 12, and I think some people are going to have questions on this one, Joe. So let's do it. Denver Broncos took Rome Odunze, wide receiver from Washington. I think some would question Denver
Okay.
Broncos needing to take a first round wide receiver.
I was really thrown off on this one. I don't want them to take JJ McCarthy. They probably could have gone with any defensive player. They could have taken any defensive player here. I just think that Odunze is a really talented receiver, and they have had no success with their receivers that they've brought in. Cortland Sutton's been constantly hurt. Tim Patrick has been constantly hurt. And Jerry Jeudy has not played anywhere up to his expectation. I actually wouldn't even be shocked if two of those three guys aren't moved on from this offseason. I think that there is going to be a more realistic chance that they take a receiver come draft day, post free agency.
Okay. We'll see what happens, man. We'll see what happens. We had number 13, Kool-Aid McKinstry to the Las Vegas Raiders, cornerback out of Alabama. We had number 14, New Orleans Saints taking Dallas Turner, edge from Alabama. 15, Indianapolis Colts take Olu Fashanu, Penn State offensive tackle. They need an offensive tackle? Indianapolis? Need one?
Yeah. I mean, their offensive line wasn't great this year. And I mean, Anthony Richardson got banged up so quick. Their offensive line, I just think in general that when you've got a young quarterback, he gets banged up early. The smartest thing that you can do is either get him weapons or you get him protection. This is a good tackle class, so you might as well get one of these early tackles and then go get a receiver in the second round. That was my thought process with the Colts.
Okay. Number 16, Seattle Seahawks, Jared Verse. Love the pick. I think it would be tremendous value at 16.
Yeah.
Number 17, Jacksonville Jaguars, Tyrion Arnold, Alabama cornerback. I would be totally okay with that. They need some serious
Jaguars fans love that, by the way. I had a couple people tag me on that one.
Yeah. Who did I have? I gave him a corner though. And who did I give?
No, you didn't. You gave him
I gave
Brian
him a wide
Thomas
receiver.
Jr. Brian Thomas Jr.
Yeah, but I think Jacksonville fans, because I go on a guy's Jacksonville Jaguars show a lot, and he has always told me that, and I've deduced this by looking at the roster, but cornerback, wide receiver seem to be two of the biggest needs this offseason. So, number 18, Cincinnati Bengals, Amarius Mims, offensive tackle from Georgia. Joe, kudos to you, sir. This is probably my favorite pick of the draft so far. I would have loved to have been able to give them an offensive tackle in my mock draft, but I had that run start a little bit earlier. And Amarius Mims went 14th overall in my draft to New Orleans Saints. So I ended up giving him Jerzon Newton, the defensive tackle. I think that one would make a lot of sense as far as his ability to plug and play at right tackle and then maybe be the left tackle of the future if you choose for him to be that guy. So
yeah, I like that thought where they're shuffling around and they're going to be short on money because they're paying Joe Burrow. So to get a young face into the mix, I think is just a really smart move for them. And he's so talented. He's so gifted. He's going to go later than some of these other guys because there's some concern of like how ready to play is this guy. And then he's going to ball the hell out in year 2. He's maybe not a year 1 guy, but year 2, we'll be like, oh my God, Amarius Mims is unbelievable.
I've said it multiple times, but I would not be shocked if we're looking at this draft 4 to 5 years down the road and we're just like, Amarius Mims is the best offensive tackle out of that class. I wouldn't be shocked. I still think it's going to be Joe Alt, but I would not be shocked if that happens. Los Angeles Rams, Troy Fontanu, offensive lineman from Washington. We've talked about that. We literally talked about that on Believe in Rams, right? Believe in Rams. I said believe on Rams, but believe in Rams. Yes, we talked about that fit. Pittsburgh Steelers, Jackson Powers Johnson, interior offensive lineman from Oregon. They need a center badly in Pittsburgh. So
this is a no-brainer. If he's on the board, I think they're going to run to the podium with that one.
Yeah, I should have gave him him instead of giving him your boy from Alabama, JC Latham, but yeah,
Yeah.
too late now. Oh my God, Joe. I haven't seen this pick until right now. Number 21, Miami Dolphins taking Jordan Morgan from Arizona, offensive lineman. Can
Yeah,
I throw up real quick?
they need their interior offensive line has been really inconsistent, and it's also been banged up. I don't think that it is a bad thought for them. Isaiah Wynn was dog shit this year, and Hunt has not been a
Sure.
consistent player.
Well,
So
he's a free
yeah,
agent too. I think Robert Hunt's a
yes,
free agent as well, but yeah.
adding
Joe,
adding a guard is it. Jordan Morgan is a fine football player. It's a little early to take him there. I don't disagree with that. But if you missed
yeah.
out on these other, if you missed out on Jax Powers Johnson, you got to address guard. And if you missed out on Fotano, the next best one's Jordan Morgan.
Yeah. I'm just looking down your list a little bit. So we're gonna fight it at a different spot. So I'm not gonna fight you too much on this
Oh,
one.
I
Okay.
can't wait for the Kamari Lassiter pick.
That's the one, man. That's the one. It's
All
coming
right, keep
soon,
reading,
too.
keep reading, keep reading.
Number 22, Philadelphia Eagles, Quinyon Mitchell, cornerback from Toledo. Very high. I'm good with it. 2020, number 23 overall, Houston Texans draft Jerzon Newton, Illinois defensive tackle. Good with it. Dallas Cowboys, Cooper DeJean, Iowa defensive back. Very interesting pick. I'm assuming you're seeing him as a safety there because they have two
I think he could
corners.
play corner or safety. I feel like they've got so many guys that could play different roles in
Mm-hmm.
Dallas, which is why I
Okay.
think he's unique to that circumstance.
Okay. We had Green Bay Packers taking Kalen King from Penn State. Hey, man, if Kalen King is back to his 2022 form, I believe that is a steal. I'd be okay with it. Number 26, Tampa Bay Buccaneers drafting Leatu Latu, edge from UCLA. And then, Joe, here we are. Number 27, Arizona Cardinals selecting Kamari Lassiter, cornerback from Georgia.
Okay, so they missed out on the opportunity to get any of the other
Yes.
talented players. Okay, so
Yes.
they
Yes.
need defensive backs. They missed out on all the edge rushers. I think actually Braylon Trice might have still been on the board, but
He
their
was.
secondary has been abysmal. They need to
Mhm.
get a DB. So my next highest graded cornerback was Kamari Lassiter. He's a second round pick for me. But when you want to get a corner, I think that there have been a much more egregious corner selections in the past drafts than Kamari Lassiter going in the end of the first round. I also believe that it is not an
Yep.
unreasonable decision because the NFL operates off of the following thought philosophy. There's
Okay.
always a certain team that they get all juiced up about, and it's going to be Georgia defensive back. He was pretty good. Maybe he's not as athletic as other guys. Let's go with him. Let's give him a shot.
I just wanted
I
I
like Kamari
wanted to
Lassiter.
I wanted to give Arizona an actual good defensive back in this one, and you gave
He's
him
not
Kamari
bad. He's
Lassiter.
just not an explosive athlete, so you don't like him. Like he's a
Uh,
good athlete. He's just not like an elite
why
athlete.
why are you yelling? I don't understand why you're yelling right now.
This
Can
is
you
what
take
I
it down
do
a couple of
all
notches?
day. What's my next pick?
It's Valentine's Day, man, and you're freaking out. Buffalo Bills, Brian Thomas Jr., LSU wide receiver. I am a big on Buffalo taking a vertical threat at this spot. I had him taking AD Mitchell. I'm not even a huge AD Mitchell fan, but I just want to get vertical element into that offense, so I'm good with that one. Detroit Lions, we had the same thought process. Braylon Trice, you have going number 29 out of Washington, the edge to give a duo
Yeah, I love that.
to Aiden Hutchinson. Very okay with that one. Baltimore Ravens, probably the steal of the first round, man. Keon Coleman, wide receiver from Florida State. They have
Yeah,
no
he
size at
slid.
receiver. They have zero size at wide receiver. So,
That's why I
yeah,
love that one. Is that I think that they've got all these guys that are tertiary or secondary guys and
yep.
slot guys, but they don't have the power forward. And I think
Mhm.
that you get a really good one with Keon Coleman there. Yeah, you're talking about good value. He slid pretty far. He
Yep.
he Kool-Aid McKinstry was your version of Keon Coleman in our
Yes.
drafts. We're like
Yep.
really good player, but just the way that the board fell for some reason slid.
Yep.
So
Last one we'll have a conversation on because number 32, you had Kansas City Chiefs taking Jalen Polk. I had from wide receiver from Washington. I had the Baltimore Ravens drafting him at pick number 30. So I'm good with that value there. The 31st overall selection is the one that we want to end on here, Joe, because you had a player that I have personally have not seen in a first round mock draft yet. And I don't necessarily dislike it when I'm looking at it. I really don't. San Francisco 49ers, the runners up in the Super Bowl, took Christian Haynes, interior offensive lineman, guard from UConn. with the 31st overall selection? Just
Yeah,
thought process.
I had a couple of people chime in on this same kind of thing where nobody was crapping on it. Just be like, I didn't think of that. We've been high on him throughout this process. He looked really good at the combine or at the Senior Bowl, and I think he's going to test well at the combine. He feels like the typical interior offensive lineman that just does really well throughout this whole process. That's going to get mocked at the end of first rounds, early second, as this process continues to finish up. I feel like he is at the very least an early second round pick. And the 49ers roster is unbelievable. It is a really talented roster. I would get them a quarterback. We're not gonna unpack that because I'm an a-hole and I don't like Brock Purdy. But their guards were their biggest weakness the whole season. They allowed a lot of interior pressures, and it showed up in the Super Bowl. Who's the goofball from Notre Dame that plays guard? I'm blanking on his name. Aaron Banks has been a massive glaring hole for them. And they have to get some talent in that room. And I think that for the way that offense has asked and called upon a lot of athletic offensive linemen like Trent Williams to move in space, like that's a guy that I want pulling. That's a guy that I want getting to the second level. He's strong enough to double team. I just, that feels like a 49er pick if they don't trade out.
Okay. Hey man, I'm not against it because, like I said, there are only so many first round grades you have in a first round mock draft. At the end of the first round, you're gonna start talking about second, third round draft picks potentially, day 2 picks, I should say. And I think Christian Haynes is gonna rise in this draft. So I don't even think it's unrealistic. Yeah. I don't think it's shocking if Christian Haynes goes to late first round. I would not be shocked at it at all. So I'm good with it. Good.
All right. It's going to wrap us up on at Joe DeLeone at Rise and Draft. We're going to be back on Monday with our wide receiver show, which is going to be a lot of disagreeing. Hit that subscribe button. We'll be back with more. Enjoy your weekend.